Readiness.
Altair, this is number 3, L-5, close visors. Fifteen 3, this is Altai 1, visors are closed, rescue aids are ready. Altair 16-3, second camera is on. We are watching the flight engineer 2. Copy.
We're approaching the T-minus 9-minute mark in the countdown. Preparations are continuing in good fashion at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. No issues reported. We're about 2 minutes away from the completion of pre-launch operations. At this point in the countdown, the Soyuz's first and second stage engines are ready for launch, telemetry having been received from the rocket, indicating that all primary and backup systems are set to support liftoff. Once again, at the time of launch, the International Space Station will be flying 259 miles over northern Uzbekistan, some 335 statute miles behind the Soyuz as it leaves the launch pad. A very narrow phase angle for launch for orbital insertion that will ensure the beginning of a 2-orbit, 3+ hour rendezvous to reach the International Space Station. And during the Soyuz climb to orbit, the ISS will leapfrog ahead of Soyuz, and Soyuz will then be catching up to the International Space Station through a series of pre-programmed rendezvous burns.
Altai 16-3, L-1, everything per the schedule. The vehicle is nominal. The launch will be broadcast. Altai 1, copy all. Everything is nominal on board. We are ready for launch.
Sergei Prokopiev, the Soyuz commander, reporting back to launch controllers in Baikonur that everything is in readiness aboard the Soyuz MS-22 spacecraft. You see the booster on the launch pad. Again, the 2 umbilical towers that are buttressed up against the Soyuz, the first will retract at about the T-minus 30 or 35-second mark. The second of those 2 umbilicals will retract at about the 12-second mark before launch, initiating the auto sequence start for engine ignition and ultimately for liftoff. Inside 6.5 minutes from launch, a launch key has been inserted in the launch bunker. This is a real key that transitions the launch sequence into automatic mode. And launch controllers down at Baikonur reporting that the range is clear, the Soyuz rocket ready to begin its journey.
Launch key inserted.
The 3 crew members strapped into their seats in the center section of the descent module have closed their visors for launch. Sergei Prokopiev reporting that everything is in readiness on board the Soyuz, flanked to his right by NASA's Frank Rubio and to his left by Roscosmos cosmonaut Dmitry Petelin. 5.5 minutes until launch. Onboard systems will be switching to onboard control. The commander's cockpit displays now activated. Passing now the 5-minute mark into the countdown. Strip chart recorders in the Launch Control Center now activated. They will be recording telemetry from the launch vehicle during liftoff and its climb to orbit. The sun setting on the Central Asian desert, everything in readiness for launch at 8:54 and 49 seconds a.m. Central Time, 6:54 and 49 seconds p.m. Baikonur time. The Soyuz 2.1A booster fuel lines and other elements of the rocket engines now being purged with nitrogen to fireproof them, to remove vapors of fuel and oxidizer for the final minutes of the countdown. Moments from now, a key will be placed in the drainage position. The valves through which evaporated or gaseous oxygen escapes from the fuel tanks into the atmosphere are closed as the fuel begins to drain back into the tanks. At the same time, the valves providing liquid oxygen to replenish those tanks will be lost by the natural boil-off or evaporation. Coming up on the T-minus 3-minute mark in the count. The drainage has now been completed. T-minus 2 minutes, 45 seconds until launch. The fuel and oxidizer tanks now being pressurized to optimize fuel flow to provide additional structural rigidity to the launch vehicle on the pad.
Booster propellant tank pressurization initiated.
Tank pressurization underway. Everything in good shape as we approach the T-minus 2-minute mark in the count.
The vehicle is nominal. Copy.
Passing through 2 minutes. Coming up on the termination of the ground propellant feed to the Soyuz booster. T-minus 1 minute 30 seconds until launch. The Soyuz about to go on internal power. This in-cabin view showing at the bottom of your screen, Sergei Prokopyev, the Soyuz commander, and at the top of your screen, Dmitry Petelin, Frank Rubio on the right of Prokopyev out of the field of view here. We are now 50 seconds from launch.
Vehicle switch to internal power, first umbilical tower separation.
First umbilical should be retracting, and there it goes. The second umbilical will retract at about the T-minus 15-second mark. The second umbilical has retracted. This will initiate the auto sequence start. T-minus 10 seconds and counting. We have engine start.
Umbilical tower separation.
Turbo pumps coming up to flight speed.
turbo pumps, flight speed,
And liftoff. A sunset start to the mission of Rubio, Prokopiev, and Patelin to the International Space Station.
10 seconds. Flight is nominal.
Good first stage performance reported from the blockhouse at Baikonur, the Soyuz delivering 930,000 pounds of thrust from its 4 boosters and single engine.
L plus 20, L plus 20.
Arcing out to the northeast from the Baikonur Cosmodrome.
Nominally.
35 seconds into the flight. Everything looking good so far. Good roll, pitch, and yaw program. The vehicle reported structural stability is good.
Stable.
Approaching the 1-minute mark into the flight.
Crew is feeling well. Vehicle is nominal. Copy.
Velocity now about 1,100 miles per hour. Yaw, pitch, and roll program all reported to be nominal from the blockhouse at Baikonur.
Nominal. Vehicle is nominal. Crew is feeling well.
Prokopiev reporting the crew is feeling well. Coming up on the 1-minute 20-second mark into the flight. Now passing through the area of maximum dynamic pressure.
L plus 80 parameters are nominal.
One minute 35 seconds into the flight.
Pressure in KPO parameter is above nominal. Copy KPO parameter of nominal. Correct? Affirmative. That jettison confirmed.
And we've had first stage separation.
Nominal. Crew is feeling well. KPO pressure parameter is nominal. Copy. KPO is nominal. Please report pressure. 834.
2 minutes 35 seconds into the flight.
Second stage engine operating nominally.
The second stage engine is operating normally. Now a view from the upper stage of the Soyuz booster as it continues to climb uphill.
100.
Launch shroud now has been jettisoned.
Vehicle is nominal.
The Soyuz booster about 48 miles in altitude. Traveling about 5,200 miles an hour. Some 72 miles downrange.
L plus 190.
3 minutes 20 seconds into the flight.
Is nominal. C indication controlled descent available. Vehicle is nominal. Copy. Indication is on.
Well, good reports so far. The flight reported as nominal as we approach the 4-minute mark into the flight.
Pressure reached 105,1500 for a moment. Copy.
Second stage engine continues to burn as planned as we approach the 4-minute 15-second mark into the flight. About halfway through powered flight now.
Copy.
About 15 seconds away from second stage shutdown and the ignition of the third stage.
L plus 270 parameters are nominal. Second stage separation confirmed.
Second stage shutdown and separation is confirmed. The Soyuz now climbing to orbit on the singular power of its third stage engine. 5 minutes, 12 seconds into the flight, about 3.5 minutes of powered flight remaining.
L plus 310. Launch vehicle is stable. Vehicle is nominal. Crew is feeling well.
Prokopiev reports that the crew is doing well. This third stage engine providing 67,000 pounds of thrust for the remaining 3 minutes of powered flight.
Нормально.
350.
We've now hit the 6-minute mark into the flight, everything going as planned. A true trajectory so far for the Soyuz booster. Now flying on the third stage propulsion of its singular engine. Good roll, pitch, and yaw reported. Good structural stability reported.
Секунд, двигатель
380 seconds. The engine of the third phase is working nominally.
стабилизация изделия.
400 seconds. The stabilization of the article is in place. It is stable. Altai.
Good structural stability of the Soyuz vehicle at the 7-minute mark into the flight, about 1 minute, 45 seconds of powered flight remaining. Yaw, pitch, and roll all reported to be nominal. At the time of third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation, control of the Soyuz vehicle through docking will transition to the flight control team at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow. Seven minutes, 30 seconds into the flight. Again, this view from a camera on the upper stage of the Soyuz booster, which should also provide us a view of the solar array deploy shortly after spacecraft separation.
Nominal crew is feeling great.
The crew reported to be feeling great, in the words of Sergei Prokopiev, the Soyuz commander. We have now reached the 8-minute mark into the flight, 45 seconds away from third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation.
480. The parameters of the launcher is nominal, and everything is nominal on orbit, and the crew is feeling great. We're waiting for the separation.
The crew on board the Soyuz MS-22, Rubio, Prokopiev, and Patelin, now about 15 seconds away from third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation.
10 seconds.
$520.
520.
And we have third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation. You see the third stage dropping away. Time tag commands now will deploy the solar arrays and the navigational antennas.
Altai, Moskva.
Altai, Moscow.
Altai, Moskva.
Altai, Moscow.
And we now have confirmation of a perfect solar array and navigational antenna deploy. The Soyuz MS-22 now in its preliminary orbit, and the chase has begun to catch up to the International Space Station, with docking planned just 3 hours from now after a 2-orbit journey. Docking scheduled at 12:11 p.m. Central Time.
How do you read us?
Алтай, по Москве.
Altai, Moscow.
Если меня слышите, работайте по
If you
35-й странице.
read me, if you can copy me, then please continue per page 35
И запускайте АКГ.
and start AKG. Altai 2, how do you read it? RP1, RP2 is closed.
Слышу вас хорошо.
Yes, RPV1 and RPV2. Yes, what about the separation contact? How did it go? It went nominally. How do you read me? This is Altai 1. Altai 1, read you loud and clear, and we copy. Everything went nominally. Yes, there was a drop in comm and a delay in comm for a little bit. Now everything is nominal. Now we work for page 36. Yes, the control is complete. Right. Right now we'll be working with ENPO2. So you need to select the display, and we confirm RDR along the roll axis is here. We confirm and we copy, and we're monitoring that. And the TV system is on, and we're waiting for the first measurement from you. First measurement, 170421, pressure is 788, BO pressure 801.
This is Mission Control Houston, back here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room. The Orbit 2 team of flight controllers now proceeding on to monitor the progress of the Soyuz MS-22 spacecraft to the International Space Station, with docking scheduled just a little over 3 hours from now. The launch, as you just saw, occurred on time at 8:54 and 49 seconds a.m. Central Time.
Copy.
6:54 and 49 seconds p.m. at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, just a few minutes after sunset. All of the Ascent activities occurred on time and were perfectly normal. A perfect ascent to orbit, third stage shutdown occurring 8 minutes and 45 seconds after launch, right on time, enabling the 3 crew members on board the Soyuz spacecraft, Frank Rubio, Dmitry Petelin, and the Soyuz commander Sergei Prokopiev, to begin all the procedures that will lead towards an automated rendezvous and docking to the Rosviet module of the International Space Station at 12:11 p.m. Central Time. Our docking coverage will begin a little over 2 hours from now at 11:15 a.m. Central, 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time on the public channel. Meanwhile, we're going to return the public channel to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where the cryogenic tanking test of the Space Launch System is continuing out on Launch Pad 39B. So we have a double dip for you today, the Soyuz launch and upcoming rendezvous and docking of the 3 new residents of the International Space Station, and the cryogenic tanking test that, if successful, could lead to a launch, the maiden launch of the Space Launch System on September 27th. For now, that'll wrap up our coverage of the launch of Soyuz MS-22 to the International Space Station. We'll see you back here in 2 hours for the rendezvous and docking coverage. In the meantime, this is Mission Control Houston.
And the
Welcome back to coverage of the Artemis I cryogenic demonstration test timeline here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Welcoming those who are watching on NASA's public channel back to our coverage. We are currently monitoring the cryogenic tanking of the Space Launch System rocket, which you see on your screen there. We started prop load at 7:30 a.m. this morning, flowing liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. But at 5 minutes past 10 a.m. this morning Eastern time, we went into stop flow on the liquid hydrogen side. The area you're looking at is the tail service mast umbilical. That is the gray protrusion that comes up at the zero deck on the mobile launch platform. And you can see the lines that go into the bottom of the rocket. Those are the fuel lines, amongst other lines, provide gaseous commodities to operate valves, as well as fluid lines for hydraulic maneuvers. This shot here, you're looking exactly at the location where just minutes ago, the liquid hydrogen team detected a leak. Stand by. Just listening to the launch team. LHY, the liquid hydrogen team, reporting to the NASA test director that the leak has the same signature as the previous leak that caused a launch scrub on September 3rd. The percentage hydrogen that was detected was 7%, according to the hydrogen team. And so now they have just gotten signed off a plan from the launch director, a pre-plan in the case of a leak like this, which is one that they did. You may be familiar with if you followed our launch coverage of the first launch attempt. This is a similar pattern, plan that was used to warm up the line that goes into the rocket and fills it with hydrogen. You're looking inside now at the firing room 1. And in the center of that room is the cryogenic propulsion team, and they are the ones that are working this current plan. They're going to let the line warm up. They've allowed it to stop flow. They're going to allow it to warm up a little bit, and then in the hopes that when they start flow again, it will reseat the connection in hopes of curing the leak. If we could take a look at that that area in the lower portion of the rocket where they are working that. There's an 8-inch fill line. This is the fuel line that provides the liquid hydrogen into the bottom of the rocket. It goes from the tail service mast umbilical on the left into the rocket on the right. And at that point where they connect, that is the umbilical disconnect point. Once the rocket lifts off the pad, the fuel lines must disconnect at that moment. Once the boosters light, that is when the umbilicals disconnect. And in that point where they are connected, there is a flight plate on the rocket side and a ground plate on the ground side where they disconnect. And it is in that area, we've got a shot of it. It is in that area right there. That's the connection point. The vapor you see is liquid oxygen. It's actually not indicative of the liquid hydrogen leak. That leak is actually contained in between the plates there. The square plate, you can't see the entire square plate, but you can see part of it. And inside that plate where the lines connect into the rocket and fill the tank with liquid hydrogen. That's where they saw a 7% hydrogen leak. And so it automatically went into stop flow. The configuration is safe. And now they are allowing that line right there to warm up a bit for about a half hour. And then they're going to reinitialize the flowing of propellant back into the rocket. Again, Launch Director Charlie Blackwell Thompson signed off on the plan to warm up the line. We're currently in stop flow on liquid hydrogen, and they are slowing the fill on the liquid oxygen side, which is currently at around 45% filled. Again, 45% filled on the liquid oxygen side. Liquid hydrogen currently in stop flow while the team works a plan to warm up the line and try to reseat a connection point into the rocket in hopes of curing a leak that was detected at just 5 minutes past 10 a.m. This is Artemis Launch Control. 10:40 a.m. Eastern Time here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, looking at a live image of Launch Complex 39B, where the Artemis rocket is currently on the pad undergoing a cryogenic demonstration test. We had a stop flow on the liquid hydrogen side at 10:05 a.m. I want to update you on what's been happening there. We are currently in the midst of a troubleshooting effort by cryogenic engineers to try and cure a leak that was detected. We had a stop flow in one of the two super chilled propellants that the launch team is testing in their loading operation today. This is the liquid hydrogen side. It showed the same signature as a previous leak. It happened at the same moment that the super chilled liquid hydrogen was transitioning from slow fill to fast through those very lines that you're seeing on your screen now. That is coming from the tail service mast umbilical going into the rocket. There are plates on both sides. In between those plates are the connection point. They disconnect at T0 to allow the rocket to lift off and go into space. That's also where they fill the propellant. So in the cavity between those lines, they have leak detectors to make sure that the seal is tight and that when that minus 423 Fahrenheit hydrogen is going through there, as long as no hydrogen is leaking, they're safe to continue fueling the rocket. While a leak was detected, mass spectrometers contained inside that cavity reported a 7% concentration of hydrogen. And again, right at the moment that they transitioned from slow fill to fast fill, which is very similar to what happened during the second launch attempt on September 3rd. Currently, the team is working a plan to troubleshoot. As we stand in terms of the propellants on board the rocket, we've got roughly 58% filled on the liquid oxygen side. They have slowed their pumps a bit, given the situation on the liquid hydrogen side. Hydrogen is in stop flow, so they are sitting at 6%. But that propellant that is in the tank is boiling, and it will slowly deplete down, which the launch team is keeping a close eye on. The troubleshooting plan is to allow that line that goes into the rocket to warm up. They've purged the line with helium. This allows the quick disconnect, as it's called, that connects into that plate there to warm up. They warm it up for about a half hour, and then they're going to resume flow back in to the core stage. We're inside firing room 1 here at the Kennedy Space Center Launch Control Center, where engineers are currently carrying out their pre-plan. The hope is that the warm-up of that line will allow it to reseat in that seal. And if there's been a gap that was created, that it will tighten up and reseal that quick disconnect to the 8-inch fuel line for the liquid hydrogen, hoping that will cure the leak. The liquid oxygen team has advised the NASA test director that if the liquid hydrogen goes below 2%, they will need to stop flow so that they don't violate what's called an aft strut constraint. The aft strut is what connects the two solid rocket boosters there on the side to the core stage. As the core stage is filled with super chilled propellants, it moves, the metal shrinks ever so slightly, but enough to put strain. So they want the propellants filled in proportion to each other. And that proportion is over 50%, 50% on the liquid oxygen side after they reach 5% on the liquid hydrogen side. And so you can see we've met that after strut constraint at the moment, but the liquid oxygen team is advising that if it that 6% starts going down and reaches 2%, they're going to have to stop their pumps as well. Again, troubleshooting for the liquid hydrogen line after a leak was detected just about 40 minutes ago. They're warming up the line. And any minute now, we're going to resume flow back into the core stage, see if they can reseat the connection to the rocket. This is Artemis Launch Control. 7 minutes past 11 a.m. Eastern Time. This is Artemis Launch Control with an update on the hydrogen leak that was detected inside the Space Launch System core stage. The team recommended and the launch director approved a troubleshooting plan to try and seal a leak on the liquid hydrogen side. It's located, and you're looking at your screen there. You have the tail service mast umbilical, the large gray structure coming up from the zero deck of the mobile launcher, and then to the right of it, the rocket. And those lines that go between them contain in them the liquid hydrogen line as well as the liquid oxygen line. The team has a pre-planned procedure that they go through when they reach a hydrogen leak. This is similar to the one that they did during the second launch attempt on September 3rd. They have allowed the line to warm up. They purged the line, allowed that liquid hydrogen line to warm up, and now they're going to begin flow again through there. The hope is that the warming of the line allows the seal where they believe there's a leak to kind of reseat against the quick disconnect, the 8-inch line that fills the tank with liquid hydrogen. But there's a slight change to this plan that they just got approval from the launch director. A slight change to this plan. It's different from previous plans during the second launch attempt, and that is that they're going to drop the pressure on the storage tank to less than 5% PSI. They're going to drop that. That is very low pressure for this operation. And then as they recover flow into the tank, into the cryosphere, they're going to very slowly and as kind and as gentle as they can step up the pressure for the fill of the hydrogen. So a little bit of different approach here to the warm up and recover fill that they've done previously. They were already taking great care to not thermally shock the system, going very slow with the chill down, going very slow with slow fill, and then even to the transition to fast fill where the pump speeds are running. I'm sorry, there's no pump speed, no pump on the liquid hydrogen side. Rather, they increase the pressure at a very slow rate to allow that liquid hydrogen to flow in. So that's the plan. It's been signed off on, and the liquid hydrogen team is putting it into work right now. You're looking at the area where that liquid hydrogen flows into the rocket, and it's on the other side of that flight plate, that square plate where the leak was detected. It was a 7% hydrogen leak detected by the sensors in there. And so from there, they're hoping that that reseats the leak. The leak stopped immediately once they stopped flow. So we're standing by. We'll let you know how the flow goes and the recovery. update on the resumption of flow into the core stage. We are now in LH2 fast fill. We are currently now in LH2 fast fill. This after a troubleshooting plan was put into play to try and reseal a leak around an 8-inch hydrogen fuel line that developed after the previous transition from slow fill to fast fill. So again, currently we are now in fast fill on the hydrogen line. Okay, we get an update on the flow of liquid hydrogen that has resumed into the core stage after we had a stop flow with a leak. It has resumed in. We are currently at roughly 14% filled on the liquid hydrogen side after getting back into LH2 fill. So there was a discussion between engineers and the launch director about getting data about this pressure-assisted seal that leaked. The moment that it leaked, they're actually currently pretty close to the point of having the same amount of pressure when the leak started. So they're currently watching this very closely. And at this moment, their data is telling them that they're less than a 0.5 percentage point concentration of hydrogen on the leak. So there is a very small leak, less than 4%, which is the constraint. But they are tracking to see if it's following the increase of pressure. SLS chief engineer and others requested that they be able to gather data as they raise the pressure, and they're currently doing that now. They want to gather data to see at what point the leak changes with an increase in pressure. During the first run, they went straight to the roughly 10 psi when they went from slow fill to fast fill, but in this case, they're stepping it up very slowly. And so the chief engineer for SLS, John Blevins, and the EGS chief engineer requested and got approval from the launch director to have a contingency plan in place if the leak reaches an more than 10% concentration of hydrogen inside that cavity for more than 5 minutes. They want to see if it goes up to 10% and stays less than 10%, 10% or less, for five minutes. If it reaches that level, they want to be able to gather data on this pressure-assisted seal to see how it's performing. If it goes above 10, they're going to go into stop fill and revert. The launch director says that if they also see a sharp increase, she wants measures immediately put into play to stop the leak. This plan is all in the name of gathering data about this seal, which has been troublesome. And in a previous launch attempt, if you've been following the Artemis I program, it created it caused a scrub back on September 3rd. And so the team really wants to closely watch what's happening as they raise pressure and the flow increases hydrogen into the rocket through that umbilical line that you see there. The tail service mast umbilicals, the gray protrusion on the left. The lines go into the rocket on the right. And the area with where the leak is right up against the rocket at the plate that connects those umbilicals right there. There's a shot of it to the rocket. Again, they detected a leak at 5 minutes after 10 a.m. Eastern time, and it created a stop flow. This time, they want to maintain a slow flow, track the pressure, track the rate of leak, and then gather the data that results from that. That's currently the contingency plan that's in place and has been approved by the launch director as they raise the pressure to get to a faster rate of fill on the hydrogen side. Currently, we're at 17% full on the hydrogen side, and on the liquid oxygen side, we're at 89%. The goal of today is a cryogenic demonstration test to tank all 4 cryogenic propellant tanks, super chilled propellants, into the rocket to determine if a repair to a seal on the hydrogen line into the core stage is going to hold. They encountered another leak today, but again, they are watching that closely. as they are slowly raising the pressure, which results in more propellant going into the tank at a faster rate. Stand by for more updates. This is Artemis Launch Control. Update on the fill rate. We are currently in the pressure required for fast fill operation. On the liquid hydrogen side, we've currently reached that pressure. And still showing around half a percentage point concentration of hydrogen inside the can where the leak is. Again, we are fully in fast fill on the liquid hydrogen side with just a very small leak being detected in the can. Correction, not in the can, within the side, the QD cavity where the connection point is, right up against the rocket. Okay, the launch team just updating the launch director on a plan to proceed to the next milestone, which is the kick start bleed, the engine bleed kick start with the liquid hydrogen. So in order to do this, there are several lines that pull the liquid hydrogen back out of the rocket after it has run through the engines. They want to make sure that they can get this bleed started and going. This is part of conditioning, thermally conditioning the RS-25 engines at the bottom of the rocket, the 4 RS-25s made by Aerojet Rocketdyne on the core stage, which is built by Boeing. There they are, the 4 RS-25 engines. So the kickstart bleed was a major milestone that they wanted to get to in this particular cryogenic demonstration test. So they're going to pre-chill a 4-inch and a 6-inch bleed line that comes off of these engines and then vents that or bleeds that liquid hydrogen out of those engines. They need to condition the engines to get them ready to start, and this is a test of that, the initial part of that bleed. It's a pressurized bleed to get it going. They close the vent, the liquid hydrogen vent, the gaseous hydrogen at that point when it's venting out. They close that vent to pressurize it, and then a small amount of liquid hydrogen is then bled through all 4 of those engines. Currently, they're managing a very small leak. Stand by. And so currently, we're at 35% full on the liquid hydrogen side, and they are monitoring a leak that is less than 1%. So engineers and safety, they're comfortable with that. The margin, the area of concern is when it goes over 4%. However, in order to collect data about this seal, engineers have sought and got approved a contingency procedure to allow the leak percentage to go up to 10% for no more than 5 minutes, after which they would go into stop flow and secure the vehicle and stop proceeding with hydrogen flow into the tank. Again, that's to collect data. Okay. Okay, and I've just heard that the bleed kickstart has now begun. Again, the kickstart bleed, running liquid hydrogen now back through the engines and then off the rocket, has begun. Over on the liquid oxygen side, they have reached 98%. They have transitioned from fast fill to topping. So they are 99% full on the liquid oxygen side. Okay, we're programming note. If you're watching us on NASA TV, the public channel, we're going to be transitioning back to coverage of the Soyuz mission to the International Space Station. We are going to go into live coverage of the docking, and we will be continuing our coverage, as you can see on the bottom of your screen, on the YouTube channel at youtube.com/NASA-Gov-video. Again, we will continue coverage there, but in the meantime, our NASA public channel will pick back up with coverage of the Soyuz mission to the International Space Station. This is Artemis Launch Control.
Good morning once again from Mission Control in Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room as we are closing in on the docking of the Soyuz MS-22 spacecraft and its 3 occupants to the International Space Station, a docking that is scheduled at 12:11 p.m. Central Time, 1:11 p.m. Eastern Time, following the spacecraft and the crew members' launch earlier today from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. You're here in Mission Control in Houston, where the Orbit 2 team of flight controllers is on duty, as they have been for the past several hours, overseeing the activities of the International Space Station's Expedition 67 crew. On console, leading the Orbit 2 team at this hour is Flight Director Allison Bollinger at the bottom of your screen, joined to her right by veteran astronaut and spacecraft communicator Jessica Meir, who is talking to the station crew as the morning progresses, and she'll be on through docking and the opening of the hatches to allow NASA's Frank Rubio and Roscosmos cosmonauts Sergei Prokopyev and Dmitry Petelin to board their new home in orbit for the next 6 months, hatch opening to take place at mid-afternoon. Across the Atlantic Ocean at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow, flight controllers are keeping close tabs on all of the systems aboard the Soyuz MS-22 following its launch and flawless insertion into its orbit, its preliminary orbit, about 2.5 hours ago. That all went by the book, no problems reported. And in fact, about 20 minutes ago, a ship-to-station link on VHF communications was established, and Sergei Prokopyev, the Soyuz commander, talked to the space station commander, Oleg Artemiev of Roscosmos, saying, "Are you ready for us?" And he said, "We are ready for the new crew to come on board." That was at a distance of about 90 kilometers. The Soyuz is now about 23 kilometers away from the International Space Station. All of its systems are up and running in good shape, including the core's automated rendezvous system that basically is a radio communications system that bounces radio signals back and forth between itself and the International Space Station to maintain navigational position and the closing rate on the International Space Station itself. This rendezvous and docking is all done automatically, except in the unlikely event that a problem would occur with the core system. Prokopyev would take over manual control of the flying of the Soyuz vehicle for its docking to the Rassvet module on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. Today's journey for Frank Rubio, Sergei Prokopyev, and Dmitry Petelin began at 8:54 and 49 seconds a.m. Central Time, 6:54 and 49 seconds p.m. Baikonur time, just about 7 minutes after sunset in the Central Asian desert, as the engines lit and the Soyuz MS-22 was airborne, climbing out to the northeast from the launch pad at Baikonur. A flawless climb to orbit. Everything worked perfectly for all 3 stages of the Soyuz rocket as it executed all of its Ascent performance activities in good shape. 8 minutes and 45 seconds after launch, the 3rd stage engine shut down, and the Soyuz separated from the 3rd stage, deploying its solar arrays and its navigational antenna for the rest of the flight to the International Space Station.
And velocity is minus 30. We get SR 7.7113, and
as the Soyuz was climbing to orbit, Samantha Cristoforetti, the European Space Agency astronaut on board the International Space Station, who next week will become the Expedition 68 commander, shot a spectacular picture of the plume of the Soyuz MS-22 as it climbed into an orbital sunset, saying, "We had a spectacular view. Sergei, Dmitry, and Frank," meaning Prokopyev, Patelin and Rubio will come knocking on our door in just a couple of hours. Looking forward to welcoming them. Samantha Cristoforetti has been a stalwart in providing spectacular photos from the International Space Station of activities both on Earth and in orbit throughout the course of her stay on orbit. Of course, Cristoforetti, Kjell Lindgren, Bob Hines, and Jessica Watkins, all part of the Crew 4 Space Crew Dragon crew, will be coming home in early October as they bring to a close almost 6 months in orbit on their own. The occupants of the Soyuz spacecraft, Frank Rubio on your left, Sergei Prokopyev, the Soyuz commander, in the center, and Dmitry Patelin on your right. They boarded their Soyuz vehicle several hours before launch, strapped themselves into their respective seats in the descent module of the Soyuz spacecraft, and settled back for the 8-minute, 45-second ride to orbit, which again went off without a hitch, no problems reported whatsoever. The Soyuz has been executing a series of so-called impulse burns of its engine, essentially in a stair-step fashion, raising its altitude to match that of the International Space Station, which is currently flying over the South Pacific at an altitude of 258 statute miles, about to begin a southwest to northeasterly track that will carry the two vehicles across South America and then back out over the Atlantic Ocean. Docking again is scheduled at 12:11 p.m. Central Time, 1:11 p.m. Eastern Time. The Expedition 67 crew on board the International Space Station that is awaiting the arrival of their 3 new occupants that will increase the population of the station temporarily from 7 to 10 crew members from left to right. It's